guys, I wanted to show you this new planner that I'm going to be starting in 2022. This is a Kinbor weekly A5 planner. I got it on a UK Etsy shop, which I will leave linked down below, but I think that the most common place to get these is from AliExpress. So this is a Chinese planner, which has a lot in common with the Hobonichi Techo, but it also has some elements of the Jibun Techo and the Take a Note planner and a few elements of its own. So I think it's different enough from any of those that it's worth considering in its own right, even though it's often mentioned on YouTube as a Hobonichi dupe. So first off, this is a soft bound A5 and it has this very nice textured faux leathery feeling kind of cover. You can see the graininess here. It's a very nice, almost rubbery texture, so quite different than the Hobonichi covers, which are cardstock. And it comes in a few different colors. I got the green, which I really like. It's coming up pretty true to life on camera. It's a nice, satisfying, deep forest green. And you can see it has rounded corners, which are one of my deal breakers. I've realized that I cannot buy a planner that doesn't have rounded corners anymore. And it has this little inscription on the side which very much reminds me of what you get on the Stalogy. So it kind of has some elements of a Stalogy as well. So it says, manage time and control life. Turn the page on yesterday, only ever think about today and tomorrow, in gold embossing. And I like that as well. So another difference that you can see immediately in comparison with the Hobonichi is that this has two sewn in bookmarks. I guess it's kind of like the weeks, but if you're comparing this to the Hobonichi Cousin or the A5 Day Free, they don't have bookmarks sewn in. So when you open it up, you get these gray end pages, and they're made out of a silky kind of paper, so it's a very thin cardstock, I would say. It's definitely thicker than the paper, but I feel like it's about maybe 120 GSM, something like that. And it's quite smooth, and it has this little sheen to it, if you can see that. Then it says 2022 Techo, manage time and control life. So it's interesting because this is a Chinese planner, but they are using the Japanese word Techo there. So it's definitely playing on the whole Hobonichi Techo, Jibun Techo kind of vibe. But as you'll see, it's quite different. So first of all, it's in Chinese and English. Then you can see that we go into this two-page yearly calendar spread. So this looks quite similar to what you get in the Hobonichi and many other planners. So it's got the whole of the previous year, in this case 2021, and the following year, 2023. And it's a Monday start, which I like, and then it has Sundays in red at the end. So 2 years per page. And then on the other side, we get the present year, which takes up most of the page. And then at the bottom, you've got a list of holidays. Then moving on, we get this yearly vertical tracker or bird's eye view planner, which is similar to what you get in the Hobonichi, except in the Hobonichi, this has 6 months per spread, and in the Kinbor, it's 4 months per spread. So it's a little bit different because you get 3 spreads of this instead of 2. So every other month is in a dark gray, and then every other month is in a lighter gray. So you can see here we have January with white writing on a dark gray, and then February in black writing on a lighter gray. And you get some space here at the top for headings or whatever you want to put here, important events or something, and then you have your monthly spreads. So in contrast to the Cousin, this is wider because they're only 4 months instead of 6. And it marks Saturdays in a kind of light gray, and then Sundays in red. And it also marks holidays in red, or in a like kind of lighter red. And then you've got some space at the bottom here as well for whatever you want to put in. So a lot of people use these as trackers, and I think that this would be quite good because you could write all of the topics of what you want to track up here vertically, and then you've got space to track all of these different things down below. I typically use this kind of thing for a very, very bird's eye view kind of planning for the future, like particular events, holidays, conferences, that kind of thing. Then we move into our monthly spreads, and another difference between this and, say, the Hobonichi Cousin is that it doesn't start earlier and it doesn't give you any future planning months. So it just starts with January and it goes until December, which I kind of like, because if you're using one of these per year, you don't have the question of like when to transfer over to the new one, and it's just very cut and dried. It gives you 12 months and that's it. So you start with your January month and it gives you the month number in big, like bold lettering, which I like. And then again, it's a Monday start, Sundays in red, Saturdays in gray. And I think that this is obviously very reminiscent of the Hobonichi layout. So when I first heard about these planners, I was a little bit suspicious of them because, like I said, I'd heard them marketed as a Hobonichi dupe, and obviously, as you know, I am a complete Hobonichi addict and very loyal to Hobonichis, and so I didn't really like the idea of a Hobonichi knockoff. But when I actually looked at the layout of this planner, I saw that it is different enough to kind of justify it on its own terms, and I like some of the features that this planner has, which are a bit different from the Cousin and also different from the Jibun Techo. I should mention that there are other layouts as well. There's one that's like a week's, and then there's an A5 and an A6 daily planner, but I only have this weekly layout here, which is most like a Cousin or a Jibun Techo in the A5 size. So you get gridded boxes, and it gives you quite a generous box size per day, but if you have a month with 6 weeks, then it will give you a half box for the extra day, if you can see here down at the bottom. And then, like the Hobonichi, it gives you a column here that you can use for to-dos that have to take place sometime in the month but you don't know exactly when, or for logging something that, you know, if you want to keep a running tally throughout the month, and it gives you some extra space down at the bottom here as well. So it also tells you the week numbers, which is a feature that I like, because then you can match up the monthlies to the weeklies if you want to. So again, it gives you the days in English and in Chinese. And it gives you the previous month and the following month in a little box down at the bottom here. Everything in this planner is very crisp and clean, and I really like the tidiness of the layout. In terms of paper color, it's reasonably white. So let me just compare it to my A6 Hobonichi original. Here you can see that it's pretty similar. And then in comparison with the weeks, you can see that it's quite a bit whiter than the weeks. So in terms of the paper, it's very thin. I think it's 52 GSM, or if not very far off, but it is definitely not Tomoe River paper. So at first glance it feels like Tomoe River paper because it's thin and smooth, but the paper quality is definitely not the same. So let me show you a pen test that I did. So this is just a few different fountain pens with different colors of ink that I happen to have inked up at the moment, and if we look at the back, you can see that the results are extremely disappointing. So compared to Tomoe River paper, which obviously doesn't bleed through at all, let me just show you for comparison. This is some writing that I did in one of my weeks, and you can see that there's a lot of fading and ghosting, but there's no bleed through. This one, in addition to very heavy shading, also has bleed through on pretty much all of the pens that I've used. So none of these would ever bleed through with Tomoe River paper. So this is something to be on the lookout for if you use fountain pens and you want to be able to use different kinds of media without having to worry about bleed through, then this is definitely not the planner for you. But if you use gel pens or ballpoint pens or a fine fountain pen, you could probably get away with it. So I am going to use a fountain pen for this, but I'm, you know, kind of just going to live with the fact that there is bleed through and it's not ideal. So let me just show you what happens when you get to the end of the monthly spreads. So like I said, the last one is December 2022. And then we go over to this spread, which I really like. So this is something that Hobonichi doesn't have, and I think that this is actually something that I kind of wish that they would introduce something like this. So this is yearly plan, and it has some blank space at the top, so there are no grids on this. You can see the grids showing through from the adjacent pages, but there aren't actually any grids printed on this. And then down here you have a full yearly spread, undated, so it goes January through to December. And you could use this for forward planning, which is what I think I would use it for, because like I mentioned, this only has the 12 months of monthly spreads. So it means that if you wanted to write down dates for the following year, you could do it on here. And it's quite convenient because it's right after the monthly spread, so you'd be able to find it easily if you're getting into the last couple of months of the planner and you want to be able to do some forward planning. So I think it's great for that. But alternatively, because it's undated and it's left very open, you could use it for tracking or for goal setting or for anything that you want to have for the current year. And you can also find it quite easily because it's right between the monthly spreads and the weekly spreads. So I think that this has a lot of potential and it's a great spread. Then moving on, we have Plan of a New Year. And it has a little red accent here, which I think is really nice. And this is just a plain double page gridded spread, which is really open to possibility. So it's kind of like turning the page to a new year in the Hobonichis. This is showing through from the beginning of the weekly spreads, and then this is showing through from the previous spread here. But you see if I lift the page up that there isn't actually anything printed on this other than the grid lines. The grid lines on here, by the way, seem to me to be about the same size as the Hobonichi grid, so I think it's 3.7. And it also has the same very faint dotted pattern that you find on Hobonichi. So, moving over to the weekly spreads, which are the heart of this planner, we have the first spread starting at the very end of December. So this is typical of what you get in a weekly planner when you get the whole entire week for whichever week the 1st of January falls in. So in this case it's on Saturday, so you can see that we have a Monday start. And it gives you the week number, so it says first week 2022, and then it gives you a little monthly calendar here. And you get this blank space on the left, just like in the Hobonichi. So the weekly layout is very similar to what you get in the Hobonichi Cousin in terms of your blank space here and then your 7 days, starting with Monday and with Sunday in red on the right. And then it has these narrow vertical columns which are timed, but it looks more like the Jibun Techo A5 Slim in that it has bubbles for the hours, and you see that the nighttime hours are shaded in dark. And let me just bring this up a little bit so that you can see where it starts. So it starts at 1 a.m., which is different from the Hobonichi because the Hobonichi starts at, I think, 5 a.m. and then it runs until 4 a.m. Whereas this starts at 1 a.m. and then it runs until 12 midnight down here. So the spacing is also different because in Hobonichi Cousin weekly layouts, you get 2 lines per hour and it's uniform, which I really like. Whereas in this, it's more like the Jibun Techo, where for the hours that you're assumed to be sleeping, you get 1 line per hour. And then at around 6 a.m., which is not indicated by a number, it's indicated by this, well, this little sunrise here, which I think stands for 6 a.m., then you start to get 2 hours. So then you start to get 2 lines per hour. And I think that this is a little bit confusing, but I think some people maybe will like it. It doesn't label every hour with a number. So you see, this is 6, this is 7, and it's indicated by a little water glass. Then this is 8, which is indicated by a number. Then this is 9, which again is indicated by a water glass, and then you get 10 indicated by a number. And it goes on like that. And I find that really confusing because it's telling you, I think, like when it's recommending that you should drink a glass of water, which is kind of cool, except that probably for a lot of people that won't be when they want to drink a glass of water, and they might prefer to have a number instead, but it's just personal preference. So it goes up again until 11. Then you have a glass of water at 11:30. Then you have what looks like a kind of full sun for noon. Then you have 1 p.m., then a glass of water at 1:30, then 2 p.m., then 3 p.m., then another glass of water at 3:30, then 4 p.m., etc. And it runs on the 24-hour clock, which I like. And then it goes up until 6, which is sunset. And then you get another glass of water for 7. Then you get 8, 9, 10, 11, and midnight. And each one of those gives you 2 lines per hour. It's much busier than the weekly spread in the Hobonichi Cousin. And you have all of these little glasses of water, and you have the daytime hours and the nighttime hours. So it's quite different in that respect. The other thing about it that's different than the Hobonichi and more like the Jibun Techo is that it divides the day into these quadrants. So you can see that you have these little lines here, solid lines, dividing the kind of midnight hours, the sleeping hours from the daytime hours, and it will divide each of those into 3 different blocks. So you have your kind of sunrise until noon block, your noon until sundown block, and then your evening block, which again could be useful depending on how you divide your days. This kind of reminds me a little bit of the spreads in the Vertical Happy Planner or Erin Condren, when you get 3 different chunks. So it could be good for blocking your activities if you want to have a nice visual reminder of morning, afternoon, evening. And then at the bottom you have space for notes and, you know, whatever you want to keep down here that's not timed. But I think that having the 24-hour timeline is really nice for people who have all kinds of different schedules. So like me, I tend to work a lot more at night and be awake at night, and then I just, you know, don't use these early morning hours at all. And other people who do shift work, etc., I think will find this quite handy. And then at the top, instead of having the blank space like you do at the Hobonichi, where you can put in your, you know, like your top 3 or whatever, it has these little icons, which again reminds me more of the Jibun Techo. So it has weather icons, and then it has icons for different things that you might want to track. So it has an apple, it has a person running, and it has some loo roll. So you can do what you want with these. So it also gives you the day of the year. So if you follow this through, it will tell you what day of the year it is all the way until we get near the end. So the weekly spreads just follow on from each other, and you have nothing interrupting them, just like in the Hobonichi Cousin. So I think that this is a great planner if you like the weekly format of the Cousin, but you like the design of the Jibun Techo, especially the Jibun Techo Biz, which is not colorful. And you want it to be in a true A5 size as opposed to an A5 Slim, which is what the Jibun Techo is. So you can see on the side here that it marks the months, so you can easily flip to the month that you want, just like the Hobonichi Cousin. And like the weekly spread of the Cousin, it's pretty monochromatic, as in it only has this gray print, and then it has the red or pink for the Sundays and holidays, as opposed to the Hobonichi daily layout and the Jibun Techo, which has more colors. Okay, so when we get to the last week of the year, you can see it's December, and it's the week that goes into the beginning of the next year. So you get 1 extra week basically that you could then use for forward planning and then transfer over when you start your 2023 planner. And then we have an index. So this is going to be for the notes pages that are coming up. So you have a 2-page spread of an index with lines, and then we get some blank gridded spreads that are numbered. So this is another feature that I really like about this. It doesn't have daily pages, so this is a lot slimmer, as you can see here, obviously, than the Hobonichi Cousin. This is a whole year's worth. Doesn't have daily pages. So it's good for people who like the weekly layout of the Hobonichi Cousin, but don't need all the daily pages. It's kind of like the day free in that respect, I guess, but it has fewer notes pages. And it also has the weekly spread, obviously, which the day free doesn't. So the numbers are in this little grayed box at the bottom. So starting with 1 on here, and then you have a little bit of space between the end of the grid and the end of the page. So it has this nice little frame rather than the grid just running exactly till the end of the page, which I like. I think that's a nice aesthetic choice. And so you can use this for really like quite comprehensive note-taking. You could use it for collections, you could use it for shopping lists, you could use it for very detailed journaling, but there are only 60 pages. And so this makes it quite a different sort of animal than the Cousin, because instead of having 365 or 366 pages, you just have 60. And that makes it much more manageable and much more portable if you don't need all of that space. So for this, I think I'm going to use this for shopping lists. And it will fit quite well for that because you get essentially 1 per week, and then you have a few extra pages if you want to use them for something else. Now, when we get to the back, it has a few really nice spreads that I think could actually have been of benefit in the Cousin. So first of all, it has a schedule, and it goes from 8 a.m. until 8 p.m. So it has this very nice 12-hour schedule. And it has a solid line here at 12 noon and at 6 p.m. So it's kind of dividing it into morning, afternoon, and then evening. So this works well for work or for studies. Then it has an annual target spread. So you can put, you know, all kinds of like kind of different goals in here, and it has enough space that you could really do some work with this. Then it has a 21-day plan, which I think is a really nice touch. So it has 1 box per day, and it labels the days, starting at 1 over here, and then going until 21. So you could use this for like when you start, and then you're kind of like counting down the days until when you get to the end. And I think that that's really nice. Then it has some favorite spreads, which are familiar from the Hobonichi. You get 4 of those. And then it has a gift-giving record page. Then it has a page that's called Encyclopedia. So this one has all kinds of different reference points. So it has paper sizes, which I think is a great feature for planner lovers. Then it has some charts showing you the difference visually between the different paper sizes, and it has some measurements, so like, you know, conversion of clothes sizes and things like that. Then here, I love this spread. It's a map of China. And then here's a map of the world. So I like this spread because it reminds me of the world map that you get in Moleskines, except in Moleskines it's at the beginning, and I much prefer having it at the end, because then if you want to ignore it, it's easier, because at the beginning you just have your planning information, and you can just, you know, kind of ignore the stuff at the end if you don't need it. But if you want it, it's quite helpful because you can use this to list places that you're going, which I used to do before the pandemic. If I was going to a conference, I would like put a circle in the country where I was going. And it also has time zones, so it can be convenient in COVID days for international meetings. I think it's quite nice having that there. And then it has some space here that you can write stuff at the bottom. And then it has some information pages. So this is like food information, and then it has the 24 solar terms, which is cool. So very similar to the Hobonichi, but different information. And then it has this personal information page. And this is very much, I think, a blatant knockoff of Hobonichi. It says Kinbor Techo 2022 life document, which is like the seal that you get on the Hobonichi. And it's gold foil, which is nice, but it doesn't have a serial number, unlike the Hobonichi. And then you get this gray end paper. And then this is the back. So it has this nice textured faux leathery feeling soft bound cover, and then it says Kinbor Creation, and this is what it looks like on the side. So all in all, I think that this is a great option if you're not that bothered about the paper quality, but you like the feel of the thin paper. And if you like this kind of slightly busier hourly layout and you want to have some notes pages, but not as many as what you would get in the Cousin. I hope that you enjoyed this. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll be back again soon. Bye!